Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our new study in Moral Laws by Edgar Sheffield Brightman, published in 1933. So we travel back from our previous study from 1942 back to 1933 and look at Brightman's philosophical ethics, his Christian philosophical ethics. We're going to begin with Chapter 1. We're going to take a look at pages 11 to 33. We'll begin with Block 1 and defining the concepts. We begin with ethos as meaning custom or habit or character in the Greek, and ethics for Brightman is the theory of the good life, and morals is the practice of the good life. So we have ethical theory and moral practice. And we will be concentrating on ethical theory here. Ethics is a normative science trying to determine standards for life. So note 2, normative science of principles. It is based on actual experience dealing with the ideal and the possible. Ethics is an evaluation of the value of the facts of experience. We deal with the what ought to be rather than the what is. So it's dealing with obligation and with value or the good. In note 3, Brightman tells us that there are 3 basic types of concepts. In ethics, there are principles of law, there are values of good, and there are obligations of duty. We must explain obligation in order to achieve the good by taking up the 3 foundational pillars of ethics, which is first, evaluate value. Next, there's obligatory positing, and then third, universal law construction and praxis. Those are the 3 pillars of ethics. So we get a good look at the conceptual aspect of ethics for Brightman, and now we take a look at Block 2 and moving from concept to concretion. And we're looking at a science of Christian ethics with the 2 central principles of love and sacrifice. Under sacrifice, there's an emphasis on self-denial and suffering in order to attain true value. And we do pull together benevolence and severity or duty and law within our ethics. Next, we look at the state of ethics within this science. There's been a lack of systematic ethical thought, says Brightman, and we ask the question, is there knowable ethical truth? We have to appeal to experience and reason. For Brightman, ethics is both possible and ethics is a necessity. And from here we move on to Block 3. We take a look at the concept of ethics as normative science. And we begin by understanding ethics as a teleology purpose, a telos purpose. Ethics is normative rather than descriptive. It concentrates on the ideal and on the possible. It builds laws on the knowledge of the actual concerning the conditions of human life. We ask about the telos direction of the facts of experience, and then we posit our qualitative estimations. We always hold as our reference the idea of true value, or eidos ideals. The reference for ethics is not the appearance of value, but the eidos ideals that are the essence of value in reality. It is the eidos ideals that become our reference. So we look at the ideal of true worth. We begin with discernment. We must discriminate among the experiences of value. We take up a logic. The normative is equated with a logic of thought for Brightman, and it's a logic that moves in the direction of truth. So note 3, block 3, note 3, we look at ethics as a logic of thought. It is a method of construction. That's going to be the third moment. It's a method of construction. And it begins with cognitive experimentation. By evaluating value claims of experience that we identify, we have to evaluate those. We discriminate between the appearance of value and the IDOS real value. That is the essence of what we examine and discern. So we're trying to define the IDOS real value within the appearance of experience. Beneath experience there is the hidden spiritual IDOS real. Therefore we begin with the experimental pioneering stage, and the final construction must represent the construction of genuinely universal ethics and genuinely progressive ethics. Our constructing principles are those which are superior to circumstance. We resist static dogma. We remain ongoing and critical in our endeavor. It's an ongoing dialectic. And so in this very first chapter, Brightman gives us his initial triad, the initial framework of how he will frame his ethics within a logic of thought, a dialectical logic. And that's going to be in block 3, note 4. We have the dialectical logic of ethics. We begin with pioneering positing. We discriminate between suppositions of appearance and value as the IDOS real, and then posit a qualitative estimation. Next, we engage in outgoing praxis, aiming at the ideal through the means available, the possibilities, and cooperate with the direction of truth. Then we reach construction. We raise up those value claims to true value, consisting of genuinely universal truth, and then reflectively internalizing a reflection that is genuinely progressive and ongoing. So we are given in chapter 1, we are given an initial framework for the logic of ethics, for the logic of the thought of ethics, the theoretical ethical. And it is pioneering positing, outgoing praxis, and method of construction. We do have to begin with discernment, discriminating suppositions from that which is the real, the essence of the real. And then when we do discern the essence of the real, we posit that ethical theory as a qualitative estimation. Then we can go out of the self by taking up the means of possibilities to enact that posited qualitative estimation within actuality. That's a cooperative effort with the already present direction of truth, the spiritual direction of truth, which is already present in objective existence. Then we can work on constructing our theoretical ethics, and they have to be made up of true values that have been verified as universal truth. Then we internalize all that's gone on, and we revise what we had before. We reflectively internalize a genuinely progressive state of mind, and we take up the dialectic again. So we begin with a profound first chapter to really launch Brightman's ethics. We are at an advantage here because we've had the advantage of already studying his philosophy of religion and already studying his spiritual life, which was his logic. And so to have already studied those, we have an advantage of filling in some of the blanks of this 1933 manuscript. Brightman went on the scene in 1930 with his Problem of God manuscript. That kind of launched him into American philosophy. This comes 3 years later, and it's his first beginning systematic articulation. Like he said, he thinks there's been a lack of systematic approach to theoretical ethics. He's out to correct that in 1933. He does so by beginning with what he's really great at, and that is defining his concepts. Brightman always does define his lexical content. So we learn that there are 3 foundational pillars to theoretical ethics: the evaluative stage, the positing stage, and the law construction stage. And that all becomes concrete in block 2. It all becomes concrete as a systematic concretion of ethical thought. It is taking up the possible and recognizing the necessary movement of truth within reality, and then discerning those IDOS ideals that will make up our ethical theoretical model. Remember, it's ethical theory and moral practice for Brightman. It's ethical theory and moral practice. So morality is practice. We begin with ethical theory and then we transition to moral practice. But the key here is that he has given us a great foundational beginning, because we actually begin with understanding that for ethics, Brightman says it has to be a dialectical logic. Ethics must be a dialectical logic. It must be a systematized dialectical logic, and there's been a lack of that systematic approach. Brightman is out to correct that failure. He's going to present a systematic approach through a logical dialectic of ethics. That becomes foundational, and as foundational, he closes out by telling us that it is going to be a pioneering effort, which we know from our previous studies means experimental. We do experiment in our positing, because he calls these, in this volume on ethics, qualitative estimates. It's an estimation of the true. As an estimation of the true, it needs verification. So we begin with an estimation of the ethical true. It is a experimental, or what he calls a pioneering positing. Then we cooperate with the direction of truth by taking up possibilities, because our interest is in the ideal and in possibility. So the second moment is taking up the possibilities to seek that verification. Then we can reach the culmination of the dialectical logic, and that's construction, actual construction of ethical principles, constructing ethical principles. And they have to be universal, they have to be progressive, they have to be ongoing dialectic. So we get, I think, a great introduction to his project of a Christian philosophical ethics. A Christian philosophical ethics that begins with precise definition of concepts, and thank you for that. And then the recognition that it must become concrete and take up the possible. We begin with the speculative estimation as the conceptual, but then we move into the concrete possible to acquire verification. Then we can form the constructive normative. So you've got the conceptual estimation, concretion as possible verification, reaching constructive normative principles of ethics. And we will pick up next time with Chapter 2.